right. Well, welcome back to our mini series of how to be able to win people, processes, and culture in your organization. Today we have again Mr. Bob Bennett. Thank you, Bob, for allowing us to be here today and for agreeing to have these conversations with us. Today's webinar session is themed Winning Organizational Structure, the Foundation for Scalable Performance. And pretty much as organizations grow, complexity increases, more people, more decisions, more dependency. Yet many companies continue operating with structures that were designed for much smaller stage. The result is often slower execution, role confusion, leadership bottlenecks, misaligned priorities. And the goal of this session is to explore how intentional organizational structure enables clarity, accountability, and scalable performance. So, Bob, let's get right to it. Bob, many organizations start lean and flexible, but as they grow, that same structure can start to create friction. In your experience, when does organizational structure begin to limit growth instead of enabling it?
So it's an interesting question. When you start a business and you're very, very early on, you usually have somebody, one person, who has an idea to solve a problem. No problem, no sales. So we're always solving a problem to be able to sell whatever it is that we are offering. And that one person hires somebody to help grow the business and then hires another person. And the next thing you know, if the business is successful, you've got a lot of people, and all of those people frequently report to that same person. Well, as you get larger and larger, and let's say you get to 20 people, and now you have 20 people reporting to one person, a typical optimal structure in the old days, let's say 20 years ago, was maybe 7 people were reporting to a single person, was about the optimal span of control that a manager could handle. Because if it got to be more than 7, you're not spending enough time with some people and probably spending more time with others. And you just start to lose track or lose your ability to be effective when you go too far. Today, I would say that a ratio of 1 person to 10 people is probably about right. So if you've got 20 people in the company, you need 2 managers, right? If you have 30 people, you probably need 3 managers. So this is how hierarchies start to get built, because sometimes you need a financial manager, that controller or CFO. That person shouldn't probably have people that are providing the service reporting to that person. So that person ends up with maybe 2 people, an accountant, a controller, or an accounts receivable person who is in collections, and perhaps a controller. And now you've got 1 person with 3 people, with 2 other people. So that's 3 people in the finance group, but you still have another 27 people that need to be managed. So you end up getting a lot more managers than 1 per 10, if you will. And that creates a lot of structure to a lot of hierarchy and a lot of structure to the organization that frequently results in difficult alignment for managers. A lot of chiefs, not enough Indians, as I guess is what they used to say. But if you've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen, everybody's cooking their own pot, and you've really got to try to synthesize this and try to create an organizational structure that drives intentional growth with expanding profitability. My preference is really, and what you normally never see in an organizational chart or an organizational structure chart, is the customer. Customer's not listed in org structures typically. And I think that's just a mistake from the beginning. Forming a company, or I'm going into an existing company, I always recommend putting the customers at the top of the organization, literally and figuratively. So if I had a website and I was showing what the organization looked like in my website, which I do frequently, I would put the customers at the top, and then those people that are serving the customers most directly, which would be sales, people that are dealing directly with the customers would be next in line. So they're at the top of the organization, and the manager of those people that are directly interfacing with the customers are below them. So that in this case, the CEO and the president of the company are at the bottom of the organization. So you literally have a inverted pyramid instead of the typical hierarchical pyramid that has the CEO and president at the top and then everybody else below them, which I just think, why should somebody be below anybody? We're all working for the customer and we're all trying to remove barriers that impede progress for our customers. So by creating an org structure that actually has the customers on top and then the customer facing people next in line, you're making a statement, which is the customers are at the top of our organization, and the people that are supporting those customers most directly and removing barriers for those customers are next in order of our priorities. And everybody below that customer line is trying to remove barriers for the customer. And the managers of the people that are removing barriers for the customers are there to remove barriers for those people, and so forth. So the way that it ends up working is the people at the bottom of the organization, which are probably the highest paid people in the company and the people that probably started the company or came in as professional managers in the company, those people are there to remove barriers for everybody above them, including the customer. So the right way to start here is by creating an org structure that's an inverted pyramid, where you've got the customers on top, you've got senior managers below, and you've got written statements in your value system and your value structure that says, our job as senior managers is to remove barriers for everybody above us, especially the customer. If you have a partner, or if you go to market with partnerships, partners are also at the top of the organization. So customers first, partners second, customer facing employees third, and then management below those people. I think that sets up an organizational structure that drives customer focused growth.
That it's such a different point of view and it makes total sense. I think that, what works at 10 or 20 employees company often breaks at 50, 100 employee company. And growth introduces complexities that require clarity. So the earlier on that you're able to set that foundation, that structure, particularly that way, right? Customers are at the top. That's why we're here. We're here to serve our customers. And structure is not about hierarchy. It's about enabling faster and clearer execution. So thank you for that, Bob. Now,
It's fine. Let me just add that almost all of us in business say that we're customer focused. It's all about the customer. But why is it that our org structures never list the customer as being even in the structure? So this is why it's obvious when you think about it that the customer belongs in. The customers ultimately pay us, right? And if you're not solving problems appropriately for the customers, then you're not going to grow appropriately. And if you don't grow, you die. Let's get the customer in the org.
Love that. Yes. Now, what are some signs of a misaligned structure? What are some of the early signs that organizational structure is no longer aligned with its growth or even its strategy?
As companies scale, people start to overlap. And, if you've got overlapping structures, let's say customer support is an example where they may need to provide a credit to a customer for an overcharge or for something that didn't go well, or just as a goodwill gesture because the customer experienced pain with the solution or product or service, and you feel like, what, we've got to send flowers. We've got to provide a small credit to this customer just for goodwill. Well, that customer rep may not have the ability, the agency to actually make that credit or to send flowers. So they've got to go someplace in the organization to get approval for that. Well, do they go to their manager for that? Well, the manager may not actually have the ability for executing at something like that without a budget. So now you've got to go to the financial person, or do you go to the financial person, or do you go to the CEO? Do you go to the VP of sales who owns, maybe customer success? So it becomes confusing as you move along in certain what would normally be considered a corner case. It's like, well, we rarely give a credit or send flowers to a customer. Doesn't mean that it's wrong to do it. It might be the perfect thing to do, but suddenly the person's like, where do I go to get this? So they typically go to their manager. The manager then goes to the manager at another of the financial team, the CFO, and the CFO says, oh yeah, that makes sense. Why don't you talk to, Karen, who is our controller? She'll be able to provide a credit card, company credit card for you to buy those flowers or whatever. So now you've got, instead of this just happening easily by that customer success or customer support person, now you've got four people involved in it, right? So things get complicated. And now if it doesn't get written down and documented, and this is really the problem, if it doesn't become something that you can actually just give your frontliners agency to do on their own, and then put it through as an expense report, every single time this thing comes up, you're going back through those four people process. And so the challenge, and one of the big reasons we run into big organizational challenges over time, is there's not enough documentation of what our good systems and good processes are. Just using that as an example, would it be a big deal for us to give our frontline staffers the ability to send flowers or up to $100 worth of spend to make a customer happy? Not a big deal, probably. So let's make it simple. Let's add it to the policies and procedures for that position. Add it to the scorecard for that position that defines what that customer service rep can do and has the agency to do without getting permission. And now you have eliminated some of the interplay that is necessary every time you did that process. Does that make sense, Andrea?
Totally. That can also come in a form of like decision bottlenecks, role overlap or confusion, even leaders involved in too many operational decisions. Ends up becoming where, what we get out of that is teams working in silos. And these are often not people problems. They are structure and clarity problems. Quicker you get to solve those problems and align yourself with your people, processes, and culture, the better off the organization will be.
Right, and I completely agree with that. What happens is you get a strong manager in finance or strong manager in sales, strong manager in customer support, and they are building a team, their customer support team, and they're in a silo. They're not really interacting with the other groups, and it's the leadership's responsibility to have, clear communication, broad communication, to make sure everybody in the company is on the same page. That, remember, our customers are first. They're not just first in our minds, they're first on our organizational chart. They're at the top of our organizational chart. Our job is to remove barriers for those customers, and we get together as a team, all of the disciplines. Each leader gets together for leadership team meetings every week to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're not operating completely in silos. We know that you want to build a really strong customer success team or a customer support team, and we support that across the company. But we want to know what everybody needs to know what we're doing that's new and novel in the customer success, because that might give us some input and some thoughts about what we can do to help remove barriers for other employees and other groups that could be using similar types of processes. So it's very important for monthly all hands meetings, at least monthly, if not more frequently. I know a company that does them weekly very effectively, and it's a big company. It's got several hundred people. But a monthly all hands meeting where everybody is on the phone, introduced. The meeting might be introduced with the agenda by the CEO or the president, or it could rotate around to different leaders, or it could be, somebody in customer success has a story and an anecdote about a big win that they got with a customer by doing something that was a little bit novel that might be interesting to other people. So you can rotate these all hands meetings and not always have the CEO or the president or a key leader driving these meetings. The more you move the responsibility around to other people, the more those other people grow in their confidence and their ability to lead within the company. Now you're building strength with your employee base, and you're building the future managers, and people respect that, and people start to enjoy the fact that, hey, this is different. I mean, I'd never, in my last company, no one let me be a speaker on an all hands meeting. This is pretty cool. Anyway, you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, yes. And I love that. As you're talking, I'm literally envisioning our next team meeting and who should run it, right? It's important for me. I'm always learning, especially from seasoned experience executives such as yourself, and I'm taking my notes over here. So Bob, how does organizational structure influence accountability and performance?
So again, if you've taken the customer and put them at the top of the organization, accountability becomes really easy, or much easier, if you will, because you always have the opportunity to say, how does this help remove a barrier or help our customers be more successful? So if you think about accountability in light of what the customer needs, what the customer wants, and what is happening with the people in between the bottom of the organization, which is you, Andrea, and Marcella in your organization, at the bottom of the organization, and what's going on at the customer level, we can build accountability around customer satisfaction. How does what we're doing, or how is what we're not doing, impacting the customer satisfaction? For example, if we said we were going to deliver an enhancement by April 1, and suddenly we can't deliver that enhancement by April 1 because something else came up that prevented us from being able to complete the work needed for that enhancement, that is a negative. The way to make it a positive, of course, or you're not a positive necessarily, but to make it as positive as possible, is to provide the customer with early communication. Bad news doesn't get better with age. So what we want to do is let the customers know that this enhancement that we had planned for April 1 is not going to be able to be released on April 1. We apologize. It is now scheduled for May 15th. The good news is we have prototyped it, it works, and it's going to be a fabulous enhancement for you, but it's not going to be forthcoming on April 1. And because of that, you will also not be charged for that enhancement on April 1. You won't be charged for the enhancement, of course, until we deliver it. If there are any questions, please let us know. We're happy to talk it through, and look for a video in the future that explains thoroughly how to use that enhancement and how to use it within your existing workflows.
Yes. And also strong structures, it's important to clarify who owns what. You need to enable faster decision making, and you need to align teams around outcomes. That's a big one. Sometimes we're always talking about the action. What is it that we need to do? But can we talk about why? Can we talk about the impact? Aligning teams around outcome is really important to just get the buy-in as well, right? We all want to be able to work together and work for the same purpose, and that purpose is to help our clients. And organizations with weak structures, those can create the diffused accountability, rework, the rework, slower executions. We don't need that. We want to be able to be as smooth, as efficient as possible. And Bob, let's talk about impact on talent, retention, and morale. How does organizational structure impact employee experience, employee retention, and overall morale?
Well, organizational structure, if it's never looked at, doesn't really do much. But if you start from the very beginning, day one of a new employee coming in, and you do an onboarding, you do an orientation with that employee. Maybe there's more people than one starting, so you might have two or three or whatever. that are all starting at the same time. When you do that orientation and you put up, you should have a little bit of a slide deck, right? That you put up that first organizational chart that shows customers up on top, and then it shows them where they're going to be. Let's say it's customer service. They're actually next highest in the organization because they're dealing directly with the customer. So from the beginning, you're inculcating this sense of responsibility and hierarchy that actually has those customer service reps very high in the organization. In fact, they're the highest in the organization because they're closest to the customer. So that does provide a cultural, think of a very serious cultural motivation to be customer focused from the very beginning. You're setting your org structure up for success because you're setting your customers up for success by having the people that deal directly with the customers at the top of the organization, and everybody below them is working to help them be successful with the customers. So I think that that's a very positive cultural, customer centric motivator for employees. Now, where it breaks down is if you don't walk the talk, right? So the leaders literally have to be in the mode of saying, you are customer facing, I work for you. I am below you on the org chart because my job is to remove barriers for you. And that is, I am serious about it. And if you see that I'm not actually walking that talk, you need to tell me. You need to expose me because when you do have a leadership position, you can be very authoritative and you can start to go outside of where you need to be. And I want everybody in the company to hold me as the CEO accountable for removing barriers for everybody, including the customer. That doesn't mean giving everything away to the customers, even though the customers might love you to give it away. But what it does mean is that you're doing the right things for the customer long term. You're investing appropriately in enhancing your service or your products. You're doing the right things in terms of rewarding the employees who are really strong at customer support and that the customers love by making sure that they are well taken care of and making sure that you keep them. How do you keep employees? You keep employees by, first of all, recruiting great employees, A players, using scorecard methodologies. You provide them with opportunities for growth through professional development, and you provide a culture that's customer focused that rewards those employees with positive relationships, positive morale, energy around helping the customer. This is what drives higher retention of employees. Than it's more important than money. It's providing an opportunity for all of your employees, and this is all part of your all hands meetings. All the employees, a happy employee knows where the ship is going. Where is this company? What is it going to look like in 2 years? What's it going to look like in 3 years? So if you don't have a vision for what that looks like, you better get it done, create it. And that's something that is done typically by the leadership team, not by a person, but by a team, because that way the leadership team all buys into it. So have a vision, make sure that all employees know what that vision is, where the ship is going, and the second thing they want to know is how are they impacting that journey? What's their purpose in getting us from here to that vision? And the third thing they want is good relationships. Good relationships with coworkers, could be good relationships with customers, with partners. It depends on the job, but they want to develop good relationships. And the way that an employee judges a good day versus a bad day is if they make progress, it's a good day. If they have a setback, bad day. So what you're trying to do as a manager within the company and as a leader within the company is remove the barriers that prevent progress every day. You want them to be making progress every day and prevent setbacks. If we can, we're still going to have them. We learn from them. We put in a system, we put in a process that eliminates the likelihood of, or reduces the likelihood of having another setback that's just like the one that you just had. And then you build a company of systems that drives perpetual organic growth with progress being made by all employees every day.
Yes, yes. And it's pretty much high performers leave when roles are unclear. Poor structure creates frustration and not just workload. And misalignment affects, the trust in leadership. Retention challenges are often structure and leadership clarity challenges in disguise. And leaders don't ever want to admit that. Bob, can you give us some advice? Give some advice for founders and CEOs, for executive joining us. What should they be evaluating today to ensure their organizational structure is actually supporting growth and performance?
So it takes some courage to do this, but if you've inherited an organization, or if you started a company and you created a hierarchical organization with you at the top and with customers not on the organizational chart at all, but everybody that's for you, that works for the people that work for you, is at the bottom of the organization. I would strongly consider changing that org structure. And I would strongly consider putting the customers into the org structure at the top, and then putting the next in line as the people that are working directly with the customer next in line in the org chart, and literally create an inverted org chart. I would try to do that as a leadership team, and not, I would discuss it, and it's called a servant-led organization. You can look it up, Google it. Servant-led organizations have the customers on the top of the organization and the leadership at the bottom of the organization, removing barriers for everybody above them, including customers. So I would start there, and I would be highly inclusive with trying to transition the org structure to that structure. Doesn't change reporting necessarily, right? I mean, the customer service manager is still going to be the customer service manager. They just moved down in the organization, but it's not a bad move. They moved down in the organization with the rest of the leaders, who are now more intentionally removing barriers for all of their teammates and the customers. So I think it becomes more intentional, and you should be proud of it. If you have one thing that it does is it actually helps to drive genuine humility through leadership and management. Because if a manager can't see themselves below that top line, then maybe they're not humble enough for work. I mean, humble enough to be a strong leader. Jim Collins, who wrote Great by Choice and Good to Great, has this theory that the separator between a good leader and a great leader is the great leader has genuine humility. Understands that a great leader understands that he or she does not have all the answers, that he or she doesn't need to make all the decisions, that he or she needs to get help from people that have more experience in certain, let's say HR, or more experience in marketing or whatever. They need to rely on people that have domain experience in their functional areas to be making decisions and providing input, and not try to make all the decisions herself or himself. So genuine humility comes from your ability, and again, your courage to reorg the business into an inverted pyramid, I would say, is the right start. And then be sure that you actually provide agency to those that are on the front line, and make sure that you walk the talk and say, you are really important to us because you are dealing directly with the customers. You are us. You represent the company more than I do, because you deal with customers more than I do. It's really important to me that you're successful.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for that. And what we're hearing today is that organizational structure is not just about reporting lines. It's about workflows, how decisions are made, and how teams execute. In our experience working with leadership teams, structure directly impacts four critical areas. Those are talent and retention. Are people set up to succeed and stay? Retention, morale, and culture. Do teams experience clarity and alignment? Performance and accountability. Is strategy translating into execution? And compliance and organizational risk. Are roles, decisions, and practices clearly defined? Because many organizations don't realize that challenges in these areas are often connected to how the organization is structured. That's why one of our first steps we take with leadership teams is helping them evaluate how their structure their roles and their systems are supporting or limiting their ability to perform. Because when structure is clear, aligned, and intentional, everything else becomes a lot easier. Hiring improves, retention strengthens, performance increases, leadership becomes more effective, and ultimately the organization becomes more scalable and predictable. And that's all we aim for. At the end of the day, where we're looking to grow our businesses, we're looking to be successful, and not just the leadership team, but everyone from the leaders to the managers to the client success reps to ultimately the client. That's what true success is all about, is to make sure that we are all successful.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, but well stated. I think that, get the org chart right, inverted pyramid. Second, make sure that everybody in the company understands it well and why, and participates in the process of getting it there. Ask people to hold you accountable, and be sure that everybody in the company has a scorecard that actually describes what they do. Even though you're not hiring them, they're already hired. It's going to help you as a leader if you've got a scorecard for every one of your employees, because if that person decides to leave or retire or doesn't make it or just decides to become a Buddhist monk somewhere in the world instead of doing the job that they are currently doing, you've got a scorecard that helps you now recruit the next person for that position, and it's written accurately as to what the job actually is being done, what the job is by the person that's doing it. So companies should have a scorecard for every single position in the company. And that serves as one, a good recruiting device, but two, a very good performance management device on the other side of the hire, so that you can actually say, hey, this is what you're accountable for. It's clear, responsible, and accountable. And now we evaluate the performance against those accountabilities. And it should be a friendly conversation. This person created their own scorecard. It should be reflective of what actually they think that they should be doing.
Yes, yes, I love that. It's all tied together, right? They're in this game to win. You need the A players, they need to know what they're doing. They need to know what they're being measured against. And this scorecard keeps everything nice and clear for everyone. And it helps with accountability. It helps with having those difficult conversations, which ultimately lead to difficult decisions that have to be made. But then they wouldn't even be that difficult because it's all clear. It's all in the open. Are we performing? Are we not? And if we're not, why aren't we? Let's pivot what we're doing and let's win. That's why we're here for.
Right.
Yes.
And if you don't have the resources, your HR resources, to be able to create this right structure and create these scorecards and drive the process of creating a better organization with accountability, to somebody that does this professionally. Somebody like Arka HR, somebody that actually can come in and help you design it and own it.
Yes. Yeah. At HR, that's what we do. Thank you, Bob, for always supporting our work and for doing these interviews with us, these questions. It's definitely going to be helpful, not only for us at Arka, but for our clients. We're definitely sending this recording and all the other ones to all of our clients, to all of our team members, because this is something that everyone needs to hear. So thank you again. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.